Just quickly say thank you to everyone for choosing to be with us this afternoon. And welcome to this community briefing for the Appalachian Hydrogen Hub. My name is Emmanuel, and I am your facilitator for today. I'm joined today by colleagues from OSED, excuse me, and ARCH2, and they're going to introduce themselves in just a bit. Before we jump in, I want to point out a few functions that are available in your Zoom control panel. We have Spanish language interpretation available. If you click the English button on the Zoom control panel, it may also say interpretation. We also have ASL, American Sign Language interpretation available as well. So if you do require or would benefit from either of those services, they are available. I also like to let everyone know that this webinar is being recorded today. The webinar, along with all of the presentation slides, will be posted on OSED's website within the coming days. Next slide, please. All right, just a bit of a background before we jump in. As many of you are aware, the Department of Energy's Office of Clean Energy Demonstrations, or OSED, announced the selection of 7 regional clean hydrogen hubs back in October of 2023. At that point, they began negotiations. After many months of negotiations, on July 31st, OSED awarded the Appalachian Hydrogen Hub, also known as the Appalachian Region Clean Hydrogen Hub, or ARCH2, which is being led by Battelle, with $30 million of federal funding to begin phase 1 of its project plan. DOE and ARCH2 are here to provide an update on the hub, to speak about the project, provide information, and lay out opportunities that have the ability to shape the way the future of energy changes within your particular community and in the region. So today, everyone will have an opportunity to engage both with folks from DOE and also from the project team as well. And we'll have a Q&A at the end of the agenda, where we will take your questions and do our best to address them. Next slide, please. So you're going to be hearing from a few folks today. Again, my name is Emmanuel Taylor. I am not a member of OSED or the ARCH2 team. I'm here as a facilitator to help to make sure that all of your questions and concerns are represented and addressed as best as possible. And now we're going to receive quick introductions from the rest of the folks that you'll be hearing from, both from OSED and ARCH2.
Thanks, Emmanuel. My name is Sarah Moore, and I am the Federal Project Manager for the Appalachian Hydrogen Hub with OSED at DOE.
Thank you. My name is James Winters. I'm a Community Engagement Specialist with OSED.
Yeah, my name is Curtis Hoffman. I'm with Battelle, and I'm the ARCH2 Program Manager.
Good afternoon. My name is Melanie White. I am Director of Strategic Engagement for Allegheny Science and Technology, and I am also the Community Benefits Manager for ARCH2.
Fantastic, and great to have all of you with us today. Next slide, please. I'm going to quickly just speak to our agenda. And so first, we're going to hear some presentations from the OSED perspective, and OSED will review its project management approach and some information regarding community benefits, and also provide some next steps and resources for those who are interested in staying engaged throughout the project development process. And then we're going to hear directly from the ARCH2 team. They'll provide an overview of the project from a technical point of view and also address their community benefits commitments. And then we'll move into our Q&A session. I will note that the Q&A session will be conducted using the Q&A module in Zoom. So if you do have questions at any point in time, no need to hold those questions until the end. At any point in time, you can use the Q&A module to enter in text and enter your questions in that particular way. And then we will address those questions during the Q&A session. If you see a question in there that you think we should prioritize that somebody else has submitted, you can always give a thumbs up or a like, and we'll do our best to prioritize that in the discussion. All right, so now without any further delay, I'd like to turn things back over to Sarah Moore, who you were just introduced to, who will speak a bit more about the hub.
Yeah, will do. Thanks very much. Can we move to the next slide, please? So Congress provided funding to the Department of Energy through the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, as well as the Inflation Reduction Act, to help fund clean energy demonstration projects, including the hydrogen hubs. So typically OSED funds up to 50% of the cost for a given project in order to deliver clean energy technology demonstration projects that are at scale and are in partnership with the private sector. Also core to our office's work is an emphasis on equity. We know that we can't get to a decarbonized energy system without working closely with the communities that are involved, and that's why it's really critical that we hear your questions today. Community input not only shapes the specific projects that OSED funds, but it also shapes our comprehensive approach to building out the clean energy industry more broadly. So your community can very much be a part of this. Next slide, please. So this slide captures the OSED portfolio at a high level. We are investing more than $25 billion in a variety of pathways and technologies that are really central to achieving our clean energy future. For example, in addition to the Hydrogen Hubs program that we're discussing with you all today, our portfolio also includes investment in long duration energy storage and carbon management, as well as funding for clean energy projects in rural and remote areas and on current and former mine lands. The Bipartisan Infrastructure Law provided DOE with $8 billion in funding to develop regional hydrogen hubs and ultimately accelerate the commercial scale deployment of low-cost clean hydrogen. Of that $8 billion, we allocated up to $1 billion for a demand-side initiative, which will ensure that both the producers and the end users that are part of the hydrogen hubs have the market certainty that they need during the early years of production to unlock critical private investment. The rest of the money will go directly to funding the 7 selected hubs that OSED announced. And these 7 hubs will catalyze more than $40 billion in private investment and ultimately create tens of thousands of good paying jobs. Next slide, please. So I know you are all here today to learn more about the Appalachian Hub, but I think it's helpful to show the landscape of the hydrogen hub selectees to remind folks that the big goal of these hubs is to catalyze a national network of clean hydrogen infrastructure to reduce pollution and carbon emissions. So this map shows an overview of the 7 selected regional clean hydrogen hub projects. And the selections were really diverse in terms of the feedstock used to produce hydrogen, the end use, the state span, as well as the size of the various projects. Next slide, please. So yeah, focusing more specifically on the Appalachian Hydrogen Hub, this hub is receiving up to $925 million in federal investment, and that will be matched by recipients to leverage billions of dollars in private money to strengthen local economies, create and maintain thousands of high-quality jobs, and slash harmful emissions that jeopardize public health and ecosystems. The Appalachian Hub plans to produce 1,500 metric tons of clean hydrogen per day from a diversity of feedstocks, including biomass, clean electricity, as well as regionally abundant natural gas. End uses that are planned include transportation, agriculture, industrial uses, and residential power. The location of this hub is very strategic, and the proposed development of multiple hydrogen fueling stations and permanent storage of carbon dioxide all really have the potential to drive down the cost of clean hydrogen distribution and storage. The hub is also really dedicated, as you'll hear today, to ensuring benefits flow directly to impacted communities and create thousands of new quality jobs and reduce greenhouse gas emissions by an estimated 9 million metric tons per year. Next slide, please. So this slide details OSED's robust project management oversight process. We do this through a phased approach with a go, no go decision before each phase. This means that a project has to meet the agreed upon deliverables for that phase before they can unlock the chunk of funding for the next phase. This helps us ensure that taxpayer dollars are properly managed. So I want to point out that right now, the Appalachian Hydrogen Hub is currently at the start of phase 1, and only a portion of funding has been awarded, that phase 1 funding. So most of the money won't go out the door until phase 3, which is the construction phase. I also want to note that this hub contains several projects, and they can move through these phases on somewhat independent timelines. So many will move to phase 2 more quickly, but others could take up to 3 years. Next slide, and I'll hand it off to James.
Thank you, Sarah. All of OSED's programs, including the H2, the hydrogen program, are required to have community benefits plans, or CBPs. CBPs have 4 interdependent parts. First, community and labor engagement. This seeks to involve all those impacted in the decisions that affect them. Second, diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, or DEIA, which seeks to build a clean energy economy reflective of all Americans. Third, investing in the American workforce. The focus of this is to build the skilled long-term workforce needed to power the energy transition. And finally, the Justice 40 Initiative, which creates a goal that 40% of the overall benefits of federal investments, including those in clean energy like hydrogen, flow to disadvantaged communities. Each H2 hub was required to develop a CBP to ensure that local communities and workers are engaged in these projects from the onset and receive concrete benefits. And OSED will provide robust project management oversight of the plan implementation throughout the project lifecycle. Next slide. Strong community benefits, or CBCs, must have certain characteristics. Awardees must go beyond a vision or assessment, including actionable goals, outcomes, and implementation steps supported by adequate money, people, and time resources. The awardee must include mechanisms for accountability to and transparency with impacted communities and propose clear metrics to measure success. Proposed projects must align with the needs and priorities of impacted communities. These commitments must demonstrate how the project will minimize and mitigate negative impacts and harm, especially to those already overburdened communities. They must have a plan for creating quality jobs, equitable access, and investing in workforce development. I want to reiterate that the CBPs submitted at application have already changed significantly. Community benefits commitments are a living document, and they are required to evolve in response to community and worker feedback over time. I also want to emphasize that OSED's role is oversight over CBCs. OSED might help facilitate some engagements, but ultimately the recipient is going to be conducting most of the engagement. Next slide. Next, I'm going to talk a little bit about next steps and resources. To give an update on the current status of the Appalachian Hub, Phase 1 has now been awarded, so the hub will begin to carry out the agreed upon activities over the next 3 years. This includes planning, design, and community and labor activities. Each technology provider will be responsible for the planning and development of their respective facilities, while all hub collaborators will contribute to community benefits activities. Negotiations over the Phase 2 award will consider the status and quality of implementation during Phase 1, including community benefits commitments, which will be updated to reflect key learnings and developments as community feedback is collected and incorporated. OSED's funding actions are subject to compliance with the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, and other requirements, including the National Historic Preservation Act and the Endangered Species Act. These projects are still very early on in the planning phase, and we need your input to help shape community and benefit commitments for these projects. Before we hear from ARCH2, I want to make sure that we take some time to discuss and make sure that you all know what our next engagement touch points will be, as well as how to get in contact with us going forward. Next slide. This slide shows you the path of engagement from when a project applies to OSED for competitive funding to when it is awarded and moves through the project management process. These hubs will take many, many years to come to fruition, and will have to pass through several stages before any construction activities start. We can't give specific timelines yet, because each project within the hub will be different, and also because things can shift significantly as the project progresses. We've listed concrete ways you can get involved here in Phase 1, including reaching out to the hub or DOE directly and attending virtual briefings like this one. Let us know via email if you'd like to receive additional information about future local engagements and plans. Engagements will be happening throughout all these phases, and one of OSED's oversight roles is to ensure meaningful ongoing engagement continues regularly in each phase. Between each phase, DOE will assess the project's progress, including the quality of community benefits implementation, and will make a decision about whether the project should receive additional funding. And finally, in addition to these mechanisms, all H2 hubs are subject to NEPA, which includes robust public participation processes. These processes will occur during phases 1 and phase 2. Next slide. These briefings are just an early but an important step in broadening engagement between DOE, the selectees, and the communities affected by these projects. The information and details on the hub-specific briefings is provided on our website. This is OSED's third post-award community briefing. Information about previous briefings are available on the local engagement webpage, and information about future briefings will be posted there as applicable. Next slide. You can also find the ARCH2 website at arch2hub.com. These next two slides showcase some of the resources that DOE has to offer regarding the H2 Hubs program. Slides will be linked at the local engagement webpage in the next couple of days. Next slide. Next, we're going to pass it on to the awardee, the ARCH2 team. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you, James. We appreciate the presentation and explaining a bit from OSED's perspective. We're going to be hearing from the ARCH2 team next. So first, I want to say congrats to the ARCH2 team for reaching this phase 1 award. It's a significant milestone. OSED is looking forward to continuing to work with the hub, working with Patel and the rest of the partners over the course of phase 1, which is expected to last up to 36 months as the hub carries out its planning, analysis, and design activities, in addition to stakeholder and community engagement across West Virginia, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. So this is just the beginning of a much longer process. The OSED award for phase 1 is $30 million, and that's being matched with a hub investment for a total of $96 million, estimated as the total for phase 1. The total OSED federal cost share amount over the life of the project, subject to the phased management approach, has the potential to be up to $925 million, with a hub cost share of at least just as much. So now this is a perfect time for community members to continue to engage and help to shape the project. And we want to use this time to help to familiarize everyone with the Appalachian Hydrogen Hub, as well as ways to get involved and engaged during phase 1. So let's start by talking about the proposed project land at a high level. So we're joined with us today by Curtis Hoffman and Melanie White. And we'd love to hear from both of you on different aspects of the proposed plan for ARCH2. Can you begin by telling us just a bit about the initiative overall?
Yeah, thank you, Emmanuel. We're excited here to continue to work with OSED, led by us here at Patel, supported by a program management office comprised of Allegheny Science and Technology, GTI Energy, TRC Environmental Corporation, and the National Energy Technology Laboratory, also known as NETL. ARCH2 is a collaborative initiative between private industry, state and local governments, academic and technology institutions, nonprofit organizations, and community groups working together to build a safe, sustainable, clean hydrogen ecosystem in Appalachia.
I appreciate that overview. And let's try to dive into some details in different aspects of the project. And I'd like to begin just with an overview of the hub in terms of its technology deployment. And we do have a number of questions already from community members who are interested in learning more. So can you give us an overview of the vision of the hub with regard to technology deployment?
Sure can. Diversity of the proposed projects is key in differentiating the feature of the hub from the proposed technologies, hydrogen production feedstocks, and delivery pathways to end user sectors and locational benefits. The proposed hub is a network of projects that aims to leverage the region's vast resources for diverse clean hydrogen production, storage, delivery, and end use applications across West Virginia, Pennsylvania, and Ohio. Strategic location of the hub and the proposed development of multiple hydrogen fueling stations, and permanent carbon dioxide storage have the potential to drive down the cost of the hydrogen distribution and storage. ARCH2 is intended to help the nation lead in the advancement of the hydrogen economy while reducing emissions and pollution that has long affected air quality in the Appalachian communities. The hub intends to produce more than 1,500 metric tons of clean hydrogen per day and reduce CO2 emissions by 9 million metric tons per year, equivalent to about the annual emissions of more than 2 million gasoline-powered cars.
Yeah, fantastic. And I know that two of the aspects that you mentioned, the fueling and the carbon storage, are things that a lot of folks have questions about. So we'll look forward to diving into more details in the Q&A. There are some questions as well, just about specific project locations, and noting that some of them might have changed since the announcements back in October. Can you share any specifics about the proposed projects and where they're intended to be located?
Yeah, yes, we can. ARCH2 is determining potential siting and facility options throughout the region, with several projects already proposed sites across West Virginia, Ohio, Pennsylvania. For example, Enbridge Gas Ohio plans to produce clean hydrogen via electrolysis at a proposed facility to be located on or near the Stark Area Regional Transit Authority, or SARTA, in Canton, Ohio. The proposed project would include on-site storage, connective infrastructure for refueling SARTA's fleet of hydrogen fuel cell buses and vehicles, and support other mobility applications. Another example is Empire Diversified Energy plans to produce hydrogen from an anaerobically digested food waste at a proposed facility near Follinsby, West Virginia. The proposed facility would use biogas generation followed by pyrolysis to convert biomass into clean hydrogen for transportation industrial uses. Fidelis New Energy plans to produce clean hydrogen via autothermal reforming of natural gas and bio-waste with carbon capture at a proposed facility near Point Pleasant, West Virginia. A planned on-site short-haul pipeline would deliver hydrogen for end use in data centers, power generations, and other applications. Clean Fuel Services LLC, a subsidiary of Hauglick Aggregates, is planning to develop a clean fuel services depot near Fairmont, West Virginia, featuring hydrogen vehicle fueling and maintenance facilities. At full capacity, the project would potentially use approximately 1 metric ton a day of clean hydrogen to power heavy and medium duty trucks, buses, and material handling and processing equipment. Independence Hydrogen plans to develop a clean hydrogen production facility near Ashtabula, Ohio, using industrial off gases at an existing chemical facility as feedstock. The hydrogen produced will be intended for use in material handling equipment at distribution centers in the region. Also, Key State plans to produce clean hydrogen via natural gas autothermal reforming and hydrogen liquefaction near the Clinton, Clearfield, and Center counties of central Pennsylvania. Hydrogen would be used in fuel cells, vehicles, and industrial heat to produce ammonia and urea for fertilizer, manufacturing uses, and the remediation of diesel and power plant exhaust emissions. The project plans to mitigate 90% of upstream carbon emissions, capture and store 99% of carbon generated from the facility, and utilize a near zero carbon power using 100% hydrogen-powered gas turbine. Other plans are still being determined in proposed siting and additional planning for the hydrogen applications using and including low carbon aviation fuel and fuel cells generating baseload electricity for homes in disadvantaged or rural communities by blending up to 15% clean hydrogen into gas distribution systems. The project fact sheet on the OSED website includes information about these projects in addition to those that have already been proposed sites.
Yeah, interesting. So I do hear a number of different use cases, and it is good to know that that fact sheet is available to be able to look more into different project locations that have been announced. I appreciate that. I do want to talk a bit about community benefits commitments. I know that's one of the big things that sort of has changed from the initial application through the negotiations and in the current state. And just as a reminder, know that the community benefits commitments are a key component of OSED's project management oversight process. And a key determinant of the hub's progression through the phases of federal funding. I know that's something a lot of folks have asked questions about already, right? These community benefit commitments are a key part of whether or not the hubs are able to continue to move through the funding phases. I know that the commitments are meant to be updated at the end of each phase to reflect key learnings and developments as the project continues to grow, in becoming more specific and more detailed, and also as community feedback is collected and incorporated as well. And so we want to take a bit of a dive into different aspects of these community benefits commitments. We know that OSED sort of looks at 4 different categories, and so we want to talk through each one of those sort of one by one as we look at different aspects of these community benefits commitments. So we'd like to start with community and labor engagement. There are a lot of questions about sort of the community engagement aspect of that so far in the Q&A module. So what can you share with us about the hub's commitments specifically related to community and labor engagement?
Sure. Thank you, Emmanuel. One thing I would like to say before I get started, you mentioned that the community benefits has changed a little bit from the time of the original application. And I just want to restate that, yes, in its form, it has changed a little bit. But the one thing that has stood from the beginning is our commitment to getting the communities involved and making sure that we consider their views as the driving factor for how we're handling our community benefits program. And I think that is a key part here of the community advisory mechanisms that are a key part of the equation to our community commitments. At the hub level, we will have an advisory board and an inclusive community benefits steering committee. That committee will be composed of regional governments, labor trade organizations, non-government organizations or NGOs, academia, and regional community groups in order to keep communities first. That steering committee will provide recommendation to the hub's leadership on a range of topics that could span the scope of the entire hub. And those will go through the advisory board, where the chair of the advisory board will hold 1 voting seat on the hub's executive board, which is a part of the overall hub governance structure. The steering committee will also provide transparency and accountability for tracking the progress of community benefits activities across the hub. As we go through phase 1, we will finalize the bylaws and structure of both of these mechanisms in order to make sure that we have the opportunity to get additional input throughout phase 1 from communities regarding how we should recruit for members of the bodies. And our ultimate goal for these entities is to make sure that they represent local communities and organization types from each state that's a part of the ARCH2 region. More information on what we come up with will be made available as the process solidifies. Each project within ARCH2 will also establish a site-specific community advisory body with membership that reflects their project stakeholders and the diversity that is represented within that group of folks. Those will include fence line and disadvantaged communities. Projects will work within their local communities to determine the scope of the advisory body and ensure that its members' composition is representative, and to ensure transparency in the nomination process as well. Each project aims to consider and implement activities that will increase accessibility of these mechanisms. And through these mechanisms and other two-way engagements, the hub will work to integrate community input into their plans to maximize the benefit for their community, as is represented by the needs of the community. We know that one size does not fit all as we move across the region. The first regional open forums are expected to occur in 2024, and local level engagements will occur as each project becomes ready. Back to you, Emmanuel.
Unfortunately, I think we lost Emmanuel, so please bear with us through these technical difficulties.
Not a problem. Sarah, would you like me to go ahead and talk a little bit more about, how we're working on discussions for agreements within the communities?
Yeah, I think that would be great. Thanks, Melanie.
Sure, not a problem. So as we move through phase one and we're working towards agreements with the communities and the local workforce, the Appalachian Hydrogen Hub is looking to expand our community engagement activity and develop plans that will demonstrate how we plan to collaborate with the local communities. By the end of phase one, each of our projects will be expected to either sign a memorandum of understanding with labor organizations that represent both construction and operation employees, and indicating that they will work towards a PLA or a collective bargaining agreement, or the projects are expected to sign a hub level MOU with labor organizations. The hub is committed to ensuring that equitable pathways for employment for local workers are available, and that employment opportunities are provided within communities that have borne the loss of employment that may be associated with a clean energy transition. Several projects have begun discussions with unions already, and they are using those to establish workforce agreements. For example, Empire Diversified Energy is already negotiating an MOU with the construction trades for their project.
All right, I appreciate that, and I do apologize. I've been experiencing intermittent internet outages here in my location. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So it sounds like we were just talking a bit about some of the community and labor engagement. Just a follow-up question. I know there were some questions in the chat just about the creation of quality jobs and investment in the local workforce. Folks are interested in understanding whether good paying permanent jobs are going to be created in the community as a part of this effort. Can you speak a bit about the hub's anticipated related activities?
Absolutely. Arch 2 is currently working to define specific skill sets that may be needed for the hub, and working with labor and trades organizations to make sure that there will be available workers that possess those skills. We are working workforce development programs that are informed by analysis of current capabilities within the region, as well as the project needs. And those are being conducted in order to build the local capacity and expand opportunities for local workers as these projects develop. Additionally, we are working train the trainer programs to have those in place that will ensure appropriate safety and occupational safety and health, or OSHA, training resources are available throughout the region, and that they are accessible to partners within each of the proposed project areas. Several projects in the Arch 2 portfolio already have ongoing activities in the workforce development area. For example, CNX actively recruits high school graduates who have an interest in energy or the various trades that support those activities. Through the CNX Mentorship Academy that was developed in 2021, CNX is training those graduates on opportunities that are of interest to them within the industry, and preparing them with the skills that are and funding that are necessary to apply for and win these jobs.
Awesome. I'd like to ask just quickly about excuse me, about Justice 40 benefits related to the initiative. And just as a reminder, Justice 40 is based on Executive Order 14008. And
yeah. So the Justice 40 initiative is a key part of the community benefits plan, which, as was mentioned, ARCH 2 will continue to develop through each phase and through the work with the communities. The goal of the Justice 40 is to ensure that the projects are delivering benefits and mitigating potential impacts to the communities by focusing on existing conditions and burdens that are experienced within these areas, particularly within disadvantaged communities throughout the region. And the benefits from Justice 40 and impacts that we are measuring and looking to target may include things such as air quality, energy savings, environmental remediation, increased resilience, and clean energy jobs, as well as issues like water use and quality, environmental impacts, safety and health, emergency response, things that are just critical to community safety and the infrastructure. The Justice 40 framework is designed to be responsive to community concerns that we identify through engagement and talking with you all. And the hub will track progress towards hub level goals, taking into consideration the priorities of the communities and ensuring that benefits are flowing to the disadvantaged communities in the project areas. Throughout phase 1 planning process, the hub will identify opportunities for communities to contribute to the project planning and decision making. And each of the ARCH 2 subrecipients or project partners will engage with their local communities for feedback on their initial project goals and plans and gather input towards their community priority definitions and documentation. The opportunities to engage with the hub will be unique with each project, but they're expected to include a variety of mechanisms such as public forums, workshops, surveys, web forms, one-on-one conversations, etc. The impact of community feedback on plans and decisions will also be unique to each project.
that makes sense. Finally, related to the community benefits commitments, can you talk a bit about DEIA and what ARCH 2 is doing to ensure that the hub advances these principles?
Absolutely. DEIA has been carefully integrated into all of the pillars of community benefits within ARCH 2. We're wanting to make sure that all of the principles are applied across the board. We begin with an assessment of our project partner DEIA programs and plans. DEIA considerations will be then applied to planning our community engagement activity, planning the benefits that are coming out of that to make sure that they are being targeted and distributed equitably as much as possible to the various disadvantaged communities or underrepresented populations. I also would like to take this opportunity to mention that we will be establishing a public data reporting platform to enhance transparency and accessibility to that information. In later phases of ARCH 2, that platform may include metrics related to DEIA and the other community benefits activities that we've discussed here. However, initially, that platform will be used to provide information about the projects, including status updates, community advisory mechanisms, recommendations, and the hub's responses that have been received from these advisory mechanisms, and upcoming engagement mechanisms and activities and events.
Yeah. I think that platform will be very useful for community members who are interested in keeping track of what's happening related to the hub's activities. All right. Well, thank you so much for providing an overview of the project and these various aspects of it. We do want to make sure that we have time for questions from the attendees today. So let's go ahead and take the opportunity to get them involved in the conversation. Next slide, please. Okay, so we're going to jump into our Q&A session. So again, I know all of you have seen, we do have the Q&A module, and I do appreciate all of the great questions that have been coming in so far. Just a few ground rules, and I think folks are doing well with this so far, but obviously we just want to be respectful in the way that we are using language, and we'll make sure that that is happening on all sides of the conversation. It is helpful to break questions up into one idea at a time. It's better for us to be able to track whether or not your questions are adequately being addressed. And it's okay to keep building on the ideas of others. Obviously, we have only so much time today, so we likely won't be able to answer all questions, but we can do our best to address what we can during the time that we have. Great. At this time, I'll invite Curtis as well to come back onto video, and we're going to try to work through as many of the questions that we can. And I do apologize for the connectivity issues that I'm experiencing as well. So I do want to follow up. We got to speak a bit about some of the project locations, and you described some of them. Some folks have noticed that there were some individual projects, including Adams Fork, or the TC Energy and Chemours projects that had been previously described, and some of that information might have changed. So can you talk in particular about those particular project locations and any updates with regard to them?
Yeah, sure. From the beginning, the application to now has changed quite a bit from feedback, and obviously these are proposed locations and they're planned. We need to get feedback from obviously the community, but I think it should be noted that every project here has to follow all state, local, and federal guidelines, rules, permits, and everything that's necessary for a normal project. So some of the projects are farther along in actually picking the direct sites. Some, as we noted and I noted earlier, had essentially proposed locations and planned locations in general areas. But as of today, due to being so early in the process and needing stakeholder feedback, as long as everybody in this meeting and in this webinar and future meetings, a lot of those locations aren't nailed down yet exactly. They're in general areas, and therefore still need to go through all the proper processes.
And so to be clear, so you noted each project will have to go through those phases. So even when we talk about things like NEPA, those are project level requirements, not hub level requirements. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be some hub level requirements, but there also is all the project specific requirements. So a lot of the project planning and proposals have to work, one, individually on the project level, but two, specifically in a hub integrated level. You saw people talk about offtake agreements, the initiative for making the hydrogen essentially marketplace. That will have to be a very integrated process. Each project specific when it comes down to the actual planning, permitting, stakeholder outreach, and development will be site specific. So there's a combination that is really the reason for the hub, that some of the things will be at a hub level, but everybody still has to perform and do the planned and proposed outreach, permitting, and every necessary design element that's necessary for a project itself. So that there in no way is there any project that gets to not follow all the typical state, federal, and local guidelines, rules for permitting, design, and stakeholder outreach in any way.
Yeah, so I have a few more questions about this sort of hub versus project relationship, and one relates to the community benefits commitments. So the community benefits commitments are made sort of at the hub level. What does that mean for individual projects, and how do you ensure that the overall goals are accomplished based on execution at the level of each project?
So within the community benefits commitments, we do have the hub level expectations, but each project also has expectations as well. So those are able to be targeted more directly to their communities. From the hub level, our goal in the PMO is to bring kind of a unity to the goals of the region for the communities, and get an understanding of the stakeholders within the region and what the general environment is, and then be able to help bring that to the projects and help them implement their programs that more directly target their communities. So the goals of community benefits and Justice 40 and all of the various pillars are targeted really to the communities that they are intended to serve.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Excuse me. Excuse me, sorry, I'm a little under the weather today. So one question that we can jump to is just related to community engagement and transparency and involvement. So we have a number of questions that have come in just about engagements to date, and many of the community members feel as though they have not been adequately involved in the proposal developments related to the hub, or the negotiation phase as well. I've heard both of you speak about the importance of incorporating community feedback into different aspects of the project moving forward. Can you talk about any plans for what are the plans moving forward related to engagement? What are the touch points that community members should expect? How should they, in what ways can they be involved? What type of influence or decision-making power would they expect to be able to yield? And I think most importantly, are there plans to improve the quality, or at least the perception of the quality engagement moving forward compared to what community members have been experiencing so far?
Absolutely. So we've said throughout the application process and throughout the negotiation process that one thing that we very much did not want to do was overpromise or create an environment where it generated excitement and then maybe we didn't receive funding. With the announcement of the award coming just in late July, we are absolutely ready to start ramping that up and to become more active and bringing people into bringing them into the room and getting the opportunity to talk with us. There is a webinar that is being planned for next month, hosted by Arch 2. So please definitely be checking for that. And then we will also be following up here within the next couple of months with open houses throughout our region. Plans are underway for those. And there will be some announcements coming soon, at least for the first one and where that location is going to be. And we will be reaching out to some of you that have been very involved throughout our listening sessions and looking to make sure that you are absolutely aware of those. We want you to have the opportunity to talk with us and the projects that are in those specific regions as we are developing the open houses. So we're looking for specific opportunities to communicate on topics of interest and just to engage and bring everybody to the table. At the project level, we mentioned earlier that projects will be doing their engagement for their specific communities, kind of on their own schedule. I mean, they obviously have timelines that they need to meet and objectives for phase one, but as we mentioned, each project is on their own timeline, and some of those may be happening here within a couple of months. Some of those may take 6 months. But those will be announced, and we will make sure that we communicate those through our Arch 2 communication channels as well.
So another aspect of this hub versus project relationship relates to the community benefits commitment. So those are made at the hub level, and that's something that the DOE has the ability to enforce accountability with relation to. On a project level, is there an intention to see those higher level community benefits commitments turn into legally binding, those commitments to turn into legally binding community benefits agreements? or specific labor agreements, right? So when these projects are being defined, and in the future when they are integrated, will the hub be using more legally binding mechanisms to enforce some of the community benefits that have been expressed or intentioned?
Yeah, I can take that question. Thanks, Manuel. When it comes down to the project specific partners, they're called PDPs, you hear project development partners, integrated with the hub. When the Arch2 hub signed the cooperative agreement, those project development partners were engaged, and therefore to be in alignment with what it needs to be proposed and executed, each project development partner has to execute the all the essentially deliverables that are within that cooperative agreement, including the community benefits program. So we have an overarching community benefits document and guidelines and deliverables we have to. Therefore, each project development partner is going to have to execute that. Melanie indicated that yes, they will be on their own different timelines, but they have to adhere to what they've committed to under the community benefits program.
All right, I appreciate that. And there's a quick question I'd like to direct towards OSED as well. And I say this, I'm asking this because the sentiment that I'm getting from some of the questions that are coming in is an expression that the community has not been fully satisfied with the level of engagement to date, and is curious about OSED's role in enforcing and ensuring that the quality of the engagement increases in the future. And I do appreciate the explanation that was provided, just related to certainty around the projects, right? And wanting to engage appropriately with the communities when there was certainty related to the project scope and the relationship with DOE. So now that that is more certain, what type of enforcement or oversight or assurance is OSED able to bring to the community engagement aspect of this project moving forward?
I'd love to answer that. Thank you very much. I think one thing I'd like to do is just take a step back and talk about the context of engagement over like the pre-award phase of these projects. And I think it's important to highlight that because these are demonstration projects, that the phased approach is there so that the recipient has enough funding and resources to plan and engineer and scale up the clean energy infrastructure that we're talking about. You know, these projects are not finalized. The cake is not baked yet. There's a lot of room for these to change over the next few years as we move throughout the phase development. And we did have a number of engagements that OSED and Arch2 sponsored prior to the phase 1 awards going out. And those conversations that we had did impact how the award was written and the type of requirements we made of Arch2 and even other hydrogen hubs. And so we have a link that I'm going to copy in our internal chat so that makes sure, if our team can make sure it gets circulated into the wider chat, I'd appreciate it. But I think most broadly, you know, like I mentioned earlier, OSED's role in all of this is really oversight. And so, you know, I think the biggest mechanism we have is if we see that the community isn't being engaged to the level that we expect or the level that the community expects, then we don't proceed with the next level of gated funding until that's been managed. And so, you know, I think that's like we've reiterated, you know, both to the selectees and to the communities that this is very important to us, and it's something that we're prepared not to proceed with if we don't feel like the community's feedback is being incorporated. Is there anything else anyone would like to add to that?
Just as an extension of that, and another question that had been asked was related to project performance and sort of the competitiveness and the economic viability of the technologies being introduced. Is that another factor that's assessed as a part of the go, no-go phased approach that OSED is using?
Yeah, I can go ahead and take that one. Yeah, the gates at each of the go, no go decision points between phases in our phased approach are going to be looking holistically at the viability of the projects. As we've mentioned, that includes community benefits, but it also includes things like economic viability, like compliance with the clean hydrogen standard and things along those lines.
So great. So to reiterate what I'm hearing then, so community benefits commitments and the way that they're addressed, as well as the viability of the technology and the success of its performance, these are all incorporated in the phased approach and are a part of the go, no go decisions. And OSED has the ability to stop or pause, halt the project in order to make sure that those things are adequately addressed before the project
Yeah.
proceeds.
Absolutely. And I'd also call back to, we mentioned earlier that the projects, the federal funding going into these projects will be matched by private investment. And the companies investing those private dollars are also going to be very interested in the economic viability of the project. So that's, another check that we have in addition to OSED's go, no go reviews.
I appreciate that. So I know that this is phase one of the project. It's focused on planning. This is not the infrastructure build out phase. As a part of this phase one, folks are very interested in understanding the impact of the project related to potential health and risks, and the way that risks are being managed and mitigated as a part of the project. Can we speak a bit about any perceived risks, or you all are very aware of the risks that are important and are being expressed by members of the community? Can you speak a bit about the plan for addressing those risks as a part of phase one of the project?
Yeah, I can take that. Part of I think back to what Sarah's point was, part of the phase one approach, not just community benefits program, which is a major part of it, but also the design, but also the impact. So we have to do a lot of planning, engineering, and modeling that needs to be done to get to the point of a decision of a go, no go. So like all the emissions need to be, ascertained, need to be documented, and need to be estimated. They are going to be involved in the decision making of if a project proceeds or doesn't proceed. And back to the previous point that we noted is that a lot of the projects haven't picked specific sites yet. So we're in the early stages of understanding the community feedback, but also a lot of those design criteria when it comes down to the development of the hub and each specific project, but also what the impacts are. So we're still in that early stage, but yes, we have to take that all into account, therefore, to be able to move each specific project to the next phase if they meet the criteria. If they don't, we have to pause and reassess and then take it from there.
So I just want to, so my understanding is that in phase one, if a project site is selected, that doesn't necessarily mean that any infrastructure, it actually means as a part of phase one that infrastructure is not being built, but that site is being selected for further study and evaluation and engineering design. So that being said, before moving into phase two, the designs, the potential impacts, the assessments, the studies that are conducted, will community members have the ability to review those and to incorporate that understanding into the evolution of the community benefits commitments before the project moves to phase two, or any stage wherein infrastructure implementation would actually be considered?
Yeah, I think you have a good question. That will there be engagement and stakeholder feedback? Absolutely. And that'll include a lot of things that go into quality jobs, air quality, emission, performance, obviously financial viability when it comes to the project development partners. So everything's going to be considered in phase one at the preliminary level. As we move into phase two, if the project meets some of all the deliverables that were set out by OSED, then the project can go into phase two, which will be a more in-depth planning. So we're at kind of the proposal stage where we're proposing a site or a few sites for some of the project development partners, getting the appropriate feedback, not like the community benefits is a major part of it, but also all the other criteria to make the decision to move forward. The go no goes are, they have to be met. And so if a lot of the go no goes are not met, the project can't proceed. So our job is to make sure that everybody understands, one, what they signed up for, which they do. Two, what's the processes and the deliverables that we've worked with OSED on to get to the point of the evaluation. As Sarah indicated, a lot of these projects they're going to take a process of anywhere up to 3 years. So there's a lot of time and a lot of feedback, and I know a lot of people want to have a lot of engagement, and we're starting to able to do that since we signed the agreement at the end of July.
I see that we are at time for now, and we know that there are many more questions that are being asked, and we have the opportunity to very specifically address in this particular statement in this engagement. So my question is just about sort of next steps and what is the plan for being able to get answers to community members who are interested? I said, on what timeline and what should they expect to come next after this briefing ends?
I'm happy to take that one a little bit. But before I answer that question, I'd just like to add on to what Curtis was saying. I know that you see my face out here a lot talking about community benefits, but I want to assure everyone that behind the scenes, community benefits is not just its own thing. We are working closely with all of the other aspects of the community, or of the Arch 2, making sure that anything that is expressed in terms of safety is conveyed to our safety team, and risk concerns go to the risk team. So we are very well integrated behind the scenes here. So I just want to offer that assurance. In terms of next steps for community engagement, I mentioned earlier that there would be a webinar coming up in September. If you are on the Arch 2 mailing list, you'll be getting a notification about that. If not, please go to info@arch2hub.com and sign up for that. We will also be making that information available through our LinkedIn page and a variety of other communications mechanisms. Again, please attend that webinar. We'll be giving information hopefully there on the open house plan. And, we're ramping up our reach out to people who have contacted us in the past through our community engagement team.
The presenters, for all the members of the community who have taken the time to engage and to post these questions. And we know that it'll be important to have those follow-up that you and being able to get answers to some of these critical questions, and hopefully figuring out scope for the project that works for all who are involved and impacted. So thank you again. With that, I'd like to turn things back over to the OSED team to provide some remarks and additional resources.
Thank you so much. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today for questions. But we want to thank you for your interest and participation in today's session in the Appalachian Hydrogen Hub. For more information, you can find the resources available on your screen here. And I just want to underscore that OSED, all of OSED, especially the engagement team, cares a whole lot about what you have to say and what your concerns are. And we read every email that comes in, every comment. And so please reach out. We're very interested, and we work hard to incorporate your feedback at every level of our engagement through this process. So thank you for your time, and hopefully we'll hear from you soon.